Hello again, everybody. This is Dan Clouser, and welcome back to the Journey of My Mother's Son podcast. Today I'm joined with Anthony Amunategui, who is the CEO of the CDO Group, and so much more, which we'll talk about in a lot of detail. But I want to keep his resume short here, and I'll let him introduce himself as I do with all my guests here in a second. But I'm really looking forward to this conversation. We had a chance to talk before we started recording, and like so many other of those conversations, we probably should have just hit the record button and we'd be halfway through the podcast by now. But we're going to revisit a lot of the topics we'd spoken about there. So Anthony, thanks so much for joining me today.
Dan, I got to tell you, thank you for having me on there. I'm honored to be on your podcast. You do some great work and it's amazing. And I just feel really honored and blessed to be on your show.
Thank you. Thank you. So before we get started with the conversation, introduce yourself to the audience. Who is Anthony today?
That's as my wife would say, Anthony's a faceted man. I feel that as all men are, as we go through life, the man that I was today, this morning, may even be different than the man I am this afternoon. I feel that, who I am today is a man who's got, father of five and beautiful children. And I'm married to my wife, Sophia, who's a beautiful Greek girl, who also is the president of the company that we run together called CDO Group. For the last 25 years, we've been doing construction work all throughout the country, kind of a glutton for punishment in that construction world, always working to find things and fix things and do what we got to do. We build retail chains like McDonald's and Chipotle's and Starbucks all around the country. And, and then I do a lot of work with men. I do a lot of men's work, right? Where I really do believe today that most of us men are going through a period of time that's never been better, right? That literally we've never had a better time on this planet, the most beautiful time, but also we're all overwhelmed. So I feel that it's my support of other men and the men that supported me. That's kind of what I'm up to in life is working in that environment. So I do a lot of work there, and then I'm a serial entrepreneur. So I've got things like a TV show called Family Style that we're working on, which is a fun show of my family and I traveling the world, doing all kinds of cool things like studying religions and history and doing big adventures, and at the same time doing some great charitable work. And then we've got some other businesses, things like real estate companies and waffle companies in Europe that we own. So always been a serial entrepreneur. So to answer that question, it's probably a pretty faceted individual.
Yeah, so much to unpack there, but that is one of the reasons why I asked the question the way I do is, who is Anthony today? Because I think, we talked about this a little bit before recording, but, we are ever evolving as human beings. And that's why I love to add that little, who you are today to it, because like you said, you could be a different person right now than what you were this morning. We're all definitely different than what we were years ago, for sure. So, when I add that little, today at the end of that question, a lot of people kind of like perk up. They're like, okay, well, that's a little different twist than just, who is Anthony. So I love that you kind of went into detail there. But again, so much to unpack there, so much I want to talk about. But let's first talk about the construction group. You've been in that for over 20 years, started in 1998. I was in construction for a little bit. As I told you, I worked for Wicks Lumber, 84 Lumber, selling building materials, mostly on residential, not a whole lot of commercial. And just, I've been out of it probably for 18 years or so, and knowing some of the changes that we're going through, just building codes and stuff like that, in the late 90s and early 2000s, what was it like, just kind of keeping up with everything that was changing, because it seemed like at that part, that time, at least from my opinion, things were changing so much that it was hard to keep up. I mean, I remember going to classes, almost on a monthly basis with stuff changing. So, how did you keep up with it as a company, and what were some of the challenges that and again, it's still changing today.
When it comes to the evolution of construction, I started this business completely by accident. I was going to be an accountant. I had no, or I was going to be a stockbroker. I watched Wolf of Wall Street one too many times. I wanted to be Gordon Gekko. And I thought, back in the '80s, I had friends that were making, thousands of dollars a month. And, and I was like, I was living in Florida. It just was fascinating and flashy. And, somehow or another, I had worked my way through school painting houses. And by accidentally, I got a commercial job, and that commercial job led me to a project manager, and that project manager invited me to Chicago, and that invitation to Chicago really unwound me being involved with a company called Discovery Zone back in the early '90s, and I went to work for them and building playgrounds all around the country. It was wonderful, like to learn how to do production construction. And I kind of got excited about it. And the people I worked for then were also part of Blockbuster Video and then Boston Market and then Einstein Bagels. And I'd kind of rolled through multiple chains. And about 25 years ago, I realized that there were companies out there buying cows to get milk, that companies like Discovery Zone or Blockbuster would hire this huge staff of people to manage their development. And I thought we could offer that to them as an outsourcing basis. And that wasn't real popular back then, but we found a little niche, and that little niche it was a thread we pulled, and it unwound. And I found some real excitement because it is a challenging career. There's never ever, and I've been for 20, plus 25 plus years, I have never ever had a day that's been boring. There's always a tremendous amount of things that evolve and places that need support. And just as you make one thing right, another spot needs your support. So it really does create, if you're up for a challenge, that's the spot to be in. And that last 25 years has been a lot of fun.
Yeah. Yeah. And you guys also do a lot of construction management.
Yeah.
And again, I think, being able to handle some of those obstacles that come up for a client, someone who's not, in the industry, and has no idea what going through a zoning process or getting permits or all that stuff even entails. What do you guys do to kind of help ease their anxiety of that? Because it is really, I don't think that, the general public really understands what has to happen before a shovel gets stuck in the ground on any construction project, yet alone a commercial and a large commercial construction project. So how do you guys go about really kind of easing that anxiety? And when they're kind of going crazy as to like, how much more red tape do we have to go through? And you guys are like, look, this is just part of the process. We got you.
It's funny when you say, when you look at the lifespan of a building, let's say that we use 100 years for a building. A building will be around for 100 years, right? If we're lucky today's, I call it disposable construction, let's say 50 to 100 years, right? You have a building around for that long. And I've certainly had a couple of homes that have been over 100 years old. And when you look at that, construction is really such a small part of it, right? Let's say that it's 6 or 8 months that it takes before the building was built. So people kind of put up with a lot of brain damage, expecting their home to be built, right? So there's kind of this expectation that construction is going to operate that way. But because of today's time, that the cost of construction is so much higher than ever before, and the cost of real estate is so much higher than before. The differentiating factor for a lot of owners or franchising companies is the time it takes to do construction. If a franchisee is open and he's spent 6 or 8 months of rent before he's even opened the store, that could be really a deciding factor into their success. And as we look at how do you do production construction in a way that you can have a predictable, reliable, deliverable for a customer, right? Where you can look at it and say, hey, I'm going to tell you, you're going to open on this date. And that might be 6 or 10 or 12 months out there. And you're going to open on that date. And people ask me, how do you predict that date? Well, the real formula really is about understanding each of the components, right? If you were to take a great example of a McDonald's, we just got done doing a McDonald's program, and we did 6,000 stores in a remodel program with all the groups that we worked with. 6,000 stores, and they said to us, "Hey, Anthony, we need that done in 12 months." And I'm like, "Well, I don't think we couldn't do it in 12 months. We did it in about 17 months, but we were able to go through 6,000 stores. And just like one of the examples was that to do a remodel for McDonald's, right? When you go look at their new look, right? And to go look at what goes through that process, it takes first a construction guy or an operations person needs to go through and go, all right, I'm ready for this, right? Here's where I'm at in the lifespan of my building. And they have to say, then construction has to go out and look at it, right? And then construction needs to invite the facilities people over there. They got to say, hey, look, before we do a remodel, we should make sure the roof's not leaking. We don't want to have a remodel and then find out, all the ceiling tiles get messed up. So facilities people will come look at it and go, all right, what parts do we want to do? What parts are working? And then operations has to approve that budget. And then we hire an architect and an engineer, and those might be some more visits. And then we finally get a set of drawings, and then we send them into the city, and then we invite subcontractors. Well, that might be 10 or 15 people need to visit a site before it ever gets started. It's before you even started banging nails. And one of the things we figured out was the amount of time and energy and environmental waste that was taking place just to do that one thing. McDonald's and the group of people that put this together really figured out if we went out and had one person take a 3D camera and walk through each one of the locations and really take that and do a thorough walkthrough, we could now send the project to the people. And just that one move alone saved millions and millions and millions and millions of hours. I mean, across 6,000 stores, millions of dollars and thousands of hours across those platforms, really, really helping and sped the project up dramatically, right? Imagine now the project comes to you in an email, right? And now you can look at it at the same time that the operations people can look at it, at the same time the facilities people can look at it, and you can start to see the characteristics of a building. Likewise, every electrician, plumber, HVAC company that needs to go out and bid it, you could send them the project and they don't even need to go out there to look at it, and it gives them a better chance. And maybe they send one person out to do some small verification stuff as opposed to what it would take a team to do it before. Right. And it really made things so much dramatically different. It's likewise, when you send it to a city for permitting, they could see what you're doing. They could, they can't leave their desk, but if you send them the video of the location and they could walk through it, it made their decision logic as to should I get a permit or not. They could see the work that you're doing be a lot clearer. And just that one little twist, right there dramatically changed it. And that's one of the things you do. You start to look for how do we leverage technologies to mitigate the back and forth of construction. And that's always changing. So, it amazes me how fast we are in this now time of our lives, the amount of changes that we're going through. The digital world is blowing me away. The invention of LiDAR, really the ability for a camera to go measure distance in a space has been the number one game changer in the digital world and the physical world being able to meet up. Right now, imagine that in the digital world, they now can measure where they relate to the physical world. Right. And now you're seeing that in self-driving cars and autonomous support, autonomous robots, being able to take the physical world and the digital world. And you're going to see the exponential speed of that archway happens so much faster. So that's a whole nother conversation, rabbit hole we can go down and talk about. So that's what we're doing. We leverage a lot of technologies to help support making those things happen kind of differently.
Yeah. So one of the things we're still constantly hearing about is supply chain issues, which I know have, hit the construction industry probably, harder than just about any other industry out there. What have you guys done to be able to overcome that and be able to still, stay on schedule throughout trying to deal with all these supply chain issues that have been created over the past couple of years?
Now, really, 2022 was one of the busiest years in development across the country. COVID had slowed down a whole bunch of things. And as we started coming out of 18 and 19, 19 and 20 and 21, and construction really boomed. But the number one problem, it was the hardest work we've ever done. And one of the reasons is supply chain, right? Because even though you'd have the work, and it was really fun getting the work, getting the materials to do the work took, a lot more time and a lot more concentration, right? Just being able to, this year, it's another year, 2023, the same thing's happening, right? Where supply chain still an issue. It promises to get even worse during this year. And that right there is causing, some real issues with that. You really have to have your A game on, right? If you're doing a project anytime this year, You need to be doing buyouts for that stuff way before you even start. It's not uncommon for us to be buying HVAC equipment and electrical panels before the project's even drawn up. Right, while they're starting the drawings, we're already buying switch gear for projects, and you can really you really know that's a dramatically different way of doing things than we've ever done before. So taking the time in design development and the time during permit just to mitigate the lead times for all of the components we're trying to get for different projects.
Yeah, yeah, very cool. So let's shift gears just a little bit and talk about some of the work that you're doing um, with men that you'd mentioned in your introduction. Tell me a little bit about that.
I belong to two different organizations that I really enjoy. One of them is called Mankind Project, and I've been a member of Mankind Project for a while. And another one's called Men's Living. Both great organizations that, today, for thousands of years as men, we were tribal. I mean, as people, we were tribal, right? I mean, we walked together. You and I may have been part of a hunting group, right? We'd had elders we walked with. They might have said to us, Anthony, Danny, you guys are, when you walk here, don't step on that branch. That'll trigger the animals. Right. And there was some wisdom to the elders that they gave us, and we got feedback from them. Hey, when you throw the spear, throw it this way, or when you set a trap, set it this way, or when you approach an animal, come from downwind. There was some direct feedback on how to live and give that back. Well, today more than ever, we've got so much information coming at us. Oftentimes, even the elders can't keep up with the information they need. Our youngins are getting feedback from places like the internet. I get likes and I grow another levels. I play video games and I'm getting feedback from I'm doing well by going up another level. And that human relationship is, I mean, even though life has never been better, right? The planet has never been, we've never had a more prosperous time on this planet. We have abundance of many, many items. A lot of us are left with with deers in a headlight. Right. You could really see men that are hurting inside and that are left feeling like they're missing out, like something's missing. There's a darkness to them. And, oftentimes we don't, the Industrial Revolution came along and took our fathers and our mothers, and they went to work in factories and they'd come home at night to be exhausted. And we're fed a line that that's what you're supposed to do. And maybe so. And maybe part of that really did develop our country and the world we live in, the prosperity that we have, and the ability to have food. Look, I can't imagine my great grandfather walking into a Costco, right? I just can't imagine what his experience would be with 12 a 24 pack of toilet paper, right? I can't imagine what his experience would be. Or if I were to hand my great grandfather my cell phone, to him, that would be black magic, right? That would be sorcery. That would be stuff of the gods, right? To be able to talk in a box and communicate and pull up information about the White House on this little piece of device, or get a map of the world, and or call your mother on the other side of the planet. That might have been sorcery at the time, right? Today, they're gifts, right? We could do things faster, but oftentimes the overwhelmingness that we have from them is making us sick. Right, that pendulum as it swings leaves us feeling just a little bit lifeless. Oftentimes we're not sure what to do with it or how to make the decisions, and having other people to support you or support me, I have found to be extremely grateful. Having great men around me from this organization makes me a better father. Right, having other men that I can bounce things off of and say, "Hey, how did you do this?" or "How are you doing this?" And men who can lovingly give me feedback when sometimes I'm misguided or going someplace I don't need to be. So I find those kind of organizations to bring lots of fruitful experiences. I just got done doing a men's living weekend this weekend, and it was a lot of fun. There was about 60 men who all went up in the woods, and they got to talk about things like feelings and relationships and marriages, and practice different techniques for breathing, and had a lot of fun too, just playing. I mean, it was the last time you got to just play. We literally just played. We're not oftentimes allowed that freedom to do that. We're supposed to, look a certain way or act a certain way. It was kind of fun to play dodgeball and field hockey, and it was kind of fun just to be able to be a boy again, right? Just a little bit of playing there, and so I think that's that's the benefits of some of that stuff, to have others that we can play with. So I don't know about you. Have you done any other men's organizations?
No, not in particular, but I do know that um, what you were saying about technology, how it's so convenient to us, but it actually also creates a little bit of a disconnect. And I know, one of the things that I love about the RV lifestyle and traveling the way we do is being able to truly experience that human connection again. Um, one of the things that I love doing podcasts like this where we're, sitting across doing it on Zoom. But I really love sitting down face to face and doing a podcast with somebody, at a picnic table in a campground or something like that, or in the RV. And I think we all long for that human connection, but somehow along the way, it got lost. And I think even more so for men than women, because a lot of times we're told, to be tough and to repress our feelings and not show our vulnerability and all that sort of stuff. But I don't necessarily agree with that, being the best way for us to go about operating throughout life. I think it creates a lot of very, very hard men, down the road when, really there's that balance of, being vulnerable, being masculine, and, finding that balance, I think. And yeah, so not in particular any like men's groups per se, but just really human connection for me.
Dan, I mean, spending this weekend with men in together, I really noticed how beautiful men are, right? I mean, we're not allowed to be beautiful, and the parts of us that have a real sensitive part of us. I mean, I oftentimes I even find in my relationship I carry a very feminine energy as well. A loving, caring, caressing one. And a lot of times my wife is just the opposite. She carries a very masculine energy, right? It's hard to say that, like, what do you, are you listening to me? No, listen, I can go out there and fight with just the best of anybody, right? You want me to defend my territory for sure. I get up every morning looking for dinosaurs because that's who I am as a man. But there's also a very soft, tender, loving part of me that has me really be able to caress my children, to be with, in a way that is different than what my wife is, right? The energy she carries is a lot different energy, and it's okay to have that divine, real energy, that almost romantic energy that men carry. And oftentimes we're like you said, we're not allowed to go there, right? Somewhere we're taught to toughen up, or suck it up, buttercup. That's kind of the mantra that I was raised on. There was go walk it off, right? There was no time to feel anything. Go walk it off. Like, come on, you grew up in sports and all the coach, and some of that was great, right? Because there is a spot where I need to be able to feel, walk through some of my feelings, and be able to still defend my territory and do the things I need to do to be, the reverent king that I can be, right? There's also a magician in me that's magical, that has a real sensitive part, there's also a lover in me that's tender and soft, and really really wants. I really enjoy those times where I can be vulnerable and soft, and I think people around me enjoy when I can be that way as well, right? As much as I can be the warrior that I am, right? The part that defends and protects this realm that we create. The warrior is great. I also, in order to be a real reverent king, I need to be able to access all of those other archetypes of myself that are really, really, and be able to cross through both of them, through all four of them. The magician, the thinker, the a warrior, and be able to cross through those kind of fluidly, right? Not get stuck in any one of them, right? Because ultimately inside of me, I am all of those. Sometimes I'm trained to be one or the other, or sometimes I defend back to, and you see that, and that's really what's fun about men's work is you can help other men out of those areas where they're stuck, and you really watch them light up when you get to be a warrior. How many men? We did an exercise this weekend, which was I don't know that if you take it out of context, it may sound a little crazy, but what was the last? Where you did a smack, you smacked a man, right? And at first you're like, you're going to do what? Right? There's not part of me is like, no way. But there was part of that energy that actually was exciting as hell, right? It was actually when you got vulnerable and you got out of being triggered from, from that, there was a part of that was actually like, whoa, right? Because how many of us men have been told never to be angry or aggressive, or some of that behavior has been bred out of us, right? Or at least been shoved down deep. And when I can't, not that I want to live there all the time, but when I know that I can access this in case I need to defend myself or support my family or protect my realm or make sure the dinosaurs don't eat us, I want to be able to access that in a time of need. I don't want to live there from a tight place of defense or insecurity, but being able to access that part of me was vibrant, right? To be able to go, wow, I get, hey, that was alive, right? To feel that was so it was a neat exercise that they were doing, and I thought. And it's difficult to talk about outside of context. You had to be in a really safe environment where you were able to do that with some context to a group and to a container that was safe to do that in. So,
Right.
but again, that's the stuff that's fun to challenge ourselves with. And that was Men's Living, and MKP is another group that's very similar, cadence and work with men. Their goal is really to make men better on this planet, to be responsible for our actions, our intended, our even our unintended actions, and some of the behaviors we've been as men. Today, we're called to be much better men than ever before. And how can we do that for our families, our communities, our world?
Yeah. So with everything that you've got going on in your life, you you then go out and decide you want to start a podcast as well. And you're the host of the Future of Development podcast. Um, what was your inspiration behind wanting to start your own podcast?
So it was kind of unique, which, by the way, we rebranded and just relaunched this last week. So it literally just came out. It is now the Future Factory. We were breaking some great numbers. We would get 7,000, 8,000, 10,000. We were breaking 20,000 downloads a week and doing some phenomenal numbers. We went to but we could never break those numbers. We couldn't break that. We couldn't break the $20,000 downloads. And we got to the point where we got to a consulting firm, and they're like, "Look, the Future Development Podcast is 30 letters. You need to back this up." By the time people type that in, they found 4 other podcasts. So one was backing out. So we now relaunched as Future Factory, which has been a whole nother fun. So it's not just development now. It kind of gives me a wider archway to go. But the idea behind it was I had for years said I would like to transition my life from being the president. I was a president of CDO Group for 23 years, right? And during COVID, I said, I really want to do this. And it's a lot easier to say that than to do it. Right. Because as a man, a lot of who I was, and any business owner, I think, could really relate to this, that I got real significance out of being the leader of that company. I would introduce myself as, "Hi, my name is Anthony Amunategui. I'm the president of CDO Group." And there was some real significance to that, who I was and the company, the size that it was, and the things that we did. There was, for a young little poor kid from Pompano Beach, Florida, that really gave me some significance, right? From some of the defense that I was trying to prove to people I wasn't poor, or the places where I was ashamed, and the fears I would have. I did a lot of defense from that for CDO Group. Now, as I move forward from there and go to other places, it really gave me a chance to move. And I hired a consulting company to come in to help me make that transition. And one day the lady comes in, the consultant comes in, and she was a tall lady, about 6'3". She's red hair. And she comes and goes, "All right, today we're gonna do something a little different. Today we're gonna lock your door." I'm like, "Oh, great. I can focus. People won't come in and bother me." They're like, "Nope, we're gonna keep you in the office and you're not gonna go out there and bother people." What? He goes, "Yeah." He goes, you hire these great people, and you keep walking out there and pulling the S out on your chest, and you have some need to be significant, and in that is causing them not to grow. And you need to stop doing that. You're allowed to talk to 7 people in a week. You get 1 hour with 7 people. That's all you get to do. And I was like, what? And, all of a sudden I thought, all right, I'm gonna start writing lists, and those 7 people will have a list for me, and I'll get. The truth was that none of that happened. I got 7 people to talk to. When I meet with those people, most of the time we talk about them and what's going on with them. I really have found out that they know what to do, and the lists are rarely ever done. I'm really more checking on who they are as humans and what I can do to support them, and really shine a bright light on them and support them as humans and see them, and more than anything, right? Because as you grow in leadership, oftentimes those people don't get seen, right? They're watching others and they don't get seen. So, just being able to do that, and it was a great gift, right? That was the greatest gift to make that transition, to do that, and that's how the podcast got started. And the lady said to me, "All right, look, if you're not going to be the president's company. You're going to have to find some significance. What do you want to do? You need to find some hobbies." I go, well, I love podcasting. I love listening to them. I love being on them. I love everything about podcasting. Like, to me, this is really where great conversations happen, and they're a lot of fun to have, and they really articulate great thoughts. And I think others enjoy it as well. I think I love listening to great podcasts, listening to people have a great conversation. It's a lot of fun. And so that's how it started. And we picked a name, and that was about a little over 2 years ago. And I got to put together a podcast team and a producer and some social media people, and they kind of gave me my little playground to play with, which is kind of nice, having some resources to support you in a new development. So that helped out a little bit in making the transition. At the same time, I picked up learning how to fly airplanes. So I've been getting my pilot's license and doing all kinds of fun stuff with that. So a lot of fun.
Very cool. And it really is a great platform. It is, it's a wonderful medium. I love it. It's one of the reasons why I wanted to continue doing it. I'd been podcasting since 2012 for our organization. And when Sandy and I decided we're going to start this new chapter, we definitely wanted to be able to tell the stories. So it is such an awesome medium. And I think it's one of those mediums where, um, there's no competition, so like, I have no problem having someone on my show who's the host of another show, because it's not like, oh, I don't want you know Anthony's show to do better than mine, or Anthony doesn't care if my show. It's like, we're just having conversations, we're just out there, lifting each other up and supporting each other. And that's one of the things I love the most about, um, the podcast medium, for sure. It's just a great way to connect with people, and really have some meaningful conversations, and inspire others through those conversations. So I love that. So last thing I want to talk about with you, we talked about the podcast, and then, you touched on this a little bit in your intro as well, but you got a TV show coming up. And again, so if stepping away from the company wasn't enough, and starting your own podcast and doing all this work in men's group wasn't enough, and learning how to, fly a plane wasn't enough, you decide to, jump in, not just with yourself, but your entire family and mothers, to do this TV show. So tell me a little bit about, what was, again, the inspiration behind that, and what can we expect from it when it rolls out here?
It's been a lot of fun. That's another one that happened kind of without me even figuring. It wasn't something I intended when I started. I had talked to my wife, and I wanted to go around the world when I was 50. And when I was 50, I was just so busy with work, I didn't do it. Right. And she would say to me, you kind of look like, when I would talk about it, she would say to me, you look like a boy who lost his puppy. And when I was 51, she planned this birthday weekend for me and some friends, and my best friend and my son and my nephew. And we went away, and we went up in the woods and played golf and raced cars and shot guns. And it was kind of a fun boys weekend. And when we came back, she had this big surprise party planned for me. And we had a big map up, and people were guessing, or if you want to go around the world, where would you go? And we settled on Hong Kong, Vietnam, Thailand, India, Cape Town, Johannesburg, Athens, London, Lima, Cusco, Machu Picchu, and Chicago. And that was the path. And we said, all right, like, let's go see how to figure that out. And what would you guess for that trip, for a ticket for one person? What would you guess if you just had to pick a number? Pick a number, Dan. But how much do you think that ticket would cost?
I would think $7,000-8,000 at least.
$6,800 per person was for the ticket, right? And then we said, all right, great. So now we could buy the tickets, and then we had to figure out how we were going to do hotel rooms, and how we're going to do adventures, and the cost of that. And so we kind of planned all that, and the fact that we could plan it, and we bought the tickets, and we got the hotel rooms, and then my wife and I kind of felt like, all right, there's a little bit empty. Like, just because we can afford to do this doesn't mean that we should do something where you help the kids learn something. And what we did was we said, what if we tried to do a some sort of a community service project in each location we went to, and our kids got involved. And in Hong Kong, we cleaned an island. We worked with little. There was another charity called Cardboard Grannies. So in the morning we went and cleaned this island. It was great because we met people we wouldn't have met, and the adventure of going to clean the island was in itself a great part of the vacation. Like, we went out there and we split up as a family. So we ultimately took 18 family members with us, and we split up into 3 different teams, and we went and see who could collect the coolest garbage. And we picked up, and we learned a lot about, foams and microfoams and plastics and microplastics and all the little things that are eroding our beaches. And it was a great way to like learn lessons for kids to see it. But it was also fun, like finding this little beach and this far little place. And afterwards we went to a little village for lunch, and we met some people who were part of the Hong Kong cleanup group, and we made friends. And then the next day we did a charity called Cardboard Grannies, where in Hong Kong, some of the really poor people that work in the markets that collect cardboard and recycle them, a lot of them are some very old people, and they call them the Cardboard Grannies. And we get to meet a couple of grannies, and we get to spend time with them and really see their beauty and their strength and their just tenacity. And their family got to spend time with them and work with them to collect cardboard and just kind of go through their day and all the relationships they have. It's a whole fiefdom of the way they live and the friends that they have. And it was beautiful to see these strong women that were just, powerful. My kids got to spend time with them. And, and same thing in Vietnam. We were in Vietnam on the 4th of July. We were there seeing the Vietnam War from their point of view. And not to say that, hey, we were not, it's a little bit different than what we were taught. Right. And our kids really get to saw the outcome. We went to the Vietnam War Memorial and got to see their view of what that war meant to their society, and the Agent Orange and the defects that we've left humans with there because of the toxic environment we left with Agent Orange. And then the charity they wanted to do there was they did hope a charity that deals with kids. It's a Catholic charity that helps orphan kids. Often, most of them have deformities from Agent Orange. And they were, we get to go spend time with them and make dinner for them and have fun and play with them. And my kids got to spend time with them. And, you could see them walk into that war memorial, one person, and you see them walk out of it a whole nother way, right? It really moved them into some other way of being. So it's quite an amazing process to travel and have these adventures. And that's really what I hope, is that we inspire others to, really realize it's not that hard to travel, right? Even no matter how broke you are, most weekends cost more than it costs to travel, right? I find that if I do it properly, I could buy my tickets ahead of time, pay off my credit cards, and by the time I travel, I can travel on credit cards or whatever I have to do, and then pay them off when I get back. Just kind of make plans to do so. But for me, traveling with my children has been one of the best gifts I can have. So really love that.
And I think what you're doing for your kids there by introducing them to these different cultures is something that no textbook will ever be able to teach them. And understanding that perspective, and again, just what you're talking about, being in Vietnam. I mean, what we were taught about why we were there, and being able to understand their perspective of what they felt, with us being there. So that's incredible. That again, that's something that, kudos to you to, be able to, have that vision that, your kids can learn a lot more than just
Right.
what they're getting taught in the classroom, for sure. So that's amazing. Um, and getting them involved in the volunteer work. I told you we do a lot of volunteer work through an organization, Y2V, and that fulfillment that you get, and again, something that was taught to me by my mother, of her dragging me along as a young child for different volunteer projects that she would do, whether it was Meals on Wheels or helping at the Little League concession stand, whatever the case was. Um, as I grew up into a young man, like, I just felt that that's part of what I do, is get involved in the community and give back and volunteer. So the fact that you're teaching that to your kids as well, I think, will leave a ripple effect, long after you and your wife leave this earth. They'll still be out there giving. And, you go into these projects thinking that you're helping someone else, and you actually find that, you benefited as much as what whoever you were helping benefited as well. So I love the fact that you're doing that in these travels. So, um, to want to document it through the TV show, and really kind of, I'm sure there's some, you know, crazy stuff that goes on both on camera and off camera as you're kind of doing that. What was that like to just have, a lot of this adventure documented? And Family Style is the name of the show, right? Family Style, not Family Time, Family Style. Yeah.
Family.
So, what was that like to have that documented?
I it took a little bit to get used to having camera guys around, right? To travel with them, to be with them. And but my wife being who she is, they're part of her, they become part of our family, right? They're literally are part of our family. They come to our Christmas dinners and they're part of our, a lot of those folks are travel a lot, so they don't have big families. And to be able to be part of a family where you sit down at dinner and you hold hands and pray and do the things that families do, it's kind of fun for them. And a lot of them we really have built some really close connections with, and that's been a lot of fun. So once you get through the shock of having a camera guy around or their document stuff, the rest of it turns out to be pretty good.
Yeah, love it, love it. So, Anthony, we're just about out of time, and we talked about so many different things. But there's anything that we didn't talk about that you think would be valuable to the listeners?
There's always more to talk about, and I'd love to be on your show more, right? There's always more to talk about. If a listener has any questions or something they want to bring up, I'd love to talk about some more. And as always, I know your show is so dynamic. It's got, your listeners, it's great. So any questions they have, I would definitely love to come on and talk more about them.
Awesome, awesome. And how do people connect with you? How can they find you on the internet? Where can they find the show when it comes out? How do they find your podcast? All that stuff. Where do they find Anthony at on the internet?
So Future Factory is the name of the podcast. It's available on all of the podcasting platforms. Anthony at CDO Group is my email. You can always catch me as an email at Anthony at cdogroup.com. And then, anytime you need me, I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on all the podcasting networks. If you type in Anthony Amunategui, AMUNATEGUI into the internet, you'll find some good connections for me there. So, or LinkedIn, another great way to catch up with me. So thank you.
Absolutely. That brings us to our final question. As you know, the subtitle of the podcast is Many Little People in Many Little Places, which comes from the opening lyrics of the Michael Franti song Gloria, which go, when many little people in many little places do many little things, then the whole world changes. So it's one of the little things that Anthony does on a daily basis to make the world a little bit better place.
I really do believe that the gift of knowing that we're malleable, right? In the practice with other men, and it's, taking a moment to first thank our higher power, right? Whatever that is for you or your gift, take a moment to say thank you, right? And then kind of starting my day asking for that support. If I can stay in gratitude, I find that the day is a little bit easier, attitude's a little bit better. The world's moving fast, and having grace for each other, knowing that sometimes the best question I can ask myself, how could the opposite of what I'm thinking be true? Right? How can sometimes I think something bad about somebody, or how can I really have grace for them that maybe where they're at in that now moment is the best they can do, right? The work they're doing is complex and the world is kind of caving in on them, and maybe I'm not seeing their best them. So whenever I have a bad thought about somebody or something that's going on, oftentimes the question I ask is, how could the opposite of the story I have about that person be true, and how could maybe something else be going on, and see them for the majesty that they are.
I love that. I love that answer. Anthony, I really enjoyed having you on the show. This is a blast. I know you talked about you're actually exploring getting into the RV world. So hopefully someday, literally down the road, we would be able to connect in a campground somewhere. I think that would be a blast. Or maybe you can jump on a volunteer project with us once you get the RV thing sorted out. I think that would be awesome, and I think it would be great for you and your family to do some travels around this country as well and see what some of the amazing things and different cultures we have right here in the United States as well. I think that would be a great lesson for them. So hopefully, again, down the road, we'll be able to connect in that way. I would really enjoy that. And, for folks out there listening, be sure to check out my other podcasts and blogs at journeymymotherson.com or danclouser.com. While you're there, pick up a copy of my most recent book, The Journey of My Mother's Son, Volume 1. Anthony, again, really appreciate the time. This was a blast.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Dan. I'm grateful.